The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with conversations in dozens of alien languages. Representatives from across the known galaxy had gathered for the annual Medal of Valor ceremony. The massive hall stretched upward for hundreds of meters, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of distant stars visible through the transparent dome above. Commander Zekthara of the Vraxian Empire adjusted his ceremonial armor as he reviewed the list of nominees. His four eyes scanned the datapad with practiced efficiency. Each name belonged to a warrior who had performed extraordinary acts of courage during the recent Shadow War against the parasitic devourers. Another year, another list of the usual suspects, muttered Captain Yilneth from the neighboring Kepler Federation. Her tentacles writhed with mild annoyance. Vraxian shock troopers, Andromedian battle mechs, Centauri psychic commandos. Always the same species getting recognition. Zekthara's mandibles clicked in agreement. The strong protect the weak. It has always been this way. These lesser species contribute what they can, but real warfare requires real warriors. Neither of them noticed the small human sitting alone in the far corner of the chamber. Sarah Chen wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations or rank insignia. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes watched the proceedings with quiet attention. She had arrived early and chosen a seat where she could observe without drawing attention to herself. The ceremony began with typical galactic pomp. Holographic displays showed battle footage from the war's most decisive moments. Massive Vraxian dreadnoughts trading fire with devourer bioships. Andromedian warriors in their powered suits cutting through enemy swarms. Centauri mind warriors directing fleet movements with their telepathic abilities. The devourers came from beyond our galaxy, announced High Chancellor Morden, his ancient voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. They consumed entire star systems, turning living worlds into barren husks. Only through the combined might of our greatest warriors did we achieve victory. One by one, the heroes took the stage. Each received thunderous applause as their achievements were read aloud. Colonel Vextar, who held off an entire devourer fleet for 6 hours. General Korthel, whose strategic genius saved the Rigel system. Captain Thelnara, who piloted her fighter through impossible odds to destroy a devourer queenship. Sarah watched each presentation with professional interest. She recognized many of the battles mentioned, though from a very different perspective than what was being described. The official accounts were accurate but incomplete, focusing on the visible heroes while overlooking the crucial details that had made their victories possible. And now, High Chancellor Mordoon continued, we come to our final presentation. This medal is awarded not for a single act of valor, but for service that went far beyond the call of duty, service that many of us never knew was happening. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was unusual. The ceremony always followed the same pattern, and there was no mention of an additional award in the program. Throughout the war, someone worked in the shadows, someone whose actions saved millions of lives but whose name appears in no official reports, someone who asked for no recognition and expected none. The Chancellor's gaze swept across the chamber. Today we correct that oversight. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She glanced toward the exits, calculating distances and timing. This couldn't be about her. She had been careful, methodical. Her missions were classified at levels that most of the beings in this room didn't even know existed. The Medal of Ultimate Sacrifice is awarded to Agent Sarah Chen of Earth's Terran Intelligence Division, the Chancellor announced. Will Agent Chen please come forward? The chamber fell completely silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned, searching for this unknown human. Sarah remained motionless in her corner seat, hoping the moment would pass that this was some kind of mistake. Commander Zekthara's datapad chimed softly. He glanced down and saw a new file had appeared, marked with security clearances he had never seen before. His four eyes widened as he began to read. During the siege of Proxima Station, the Chancellor continued, Agent Chen infiltrated a devourer bioship and corrupted its navigation systems, causing the entire fleet to emerge from hyperspace directly into our defensive grid. Official reports credited this victory to superior Vraxian tactical planning. Captain Yilneth's tentacles went rigid. She had been at Proxima Station. She remembered the confusion when the enemy fleet appeared exactly where their weapons could do maximum damage. It had seemed like an impossible stroke of luck. At the Battle of Wolf 359, the Chancellor continued, Agent Chen spent 14 days inside a devourer hive mind. slowly introducing false information that led them to divide their forces. The resulting victory was attributed to Andromedean battlesuit superiority. More datapads chimed throughout the chamber as classified files were simultaneously released to military commanders. The audience began to stir as they read accounts of battles they thought they knew, now revealed from an entirely different perspective. Sarah finally stood up, realizing she had no choice. Every eye in the chamber turned toward the small human making her way down the aisle. She walked with quiet confidence, her expression neutral and professional. The silence was so complete that her footsteps echoed despite the chamber's sound-dampening systems. As she reached the stage, whispered conversations began to break out. Alien voices speaking in hushed, amazed tones as they processed what they were learning. "Agent Chen," the Chancellor said as she approached the podium, "your government submitted a partial summary of your service record. Even with most details still classified, the scope of your contributions is staggering. You have operated behind enemy lines for a total of 3 years and 7 months during the war. You have infiltrated Devourer command structures, corrupted their communication networks, and provided intelligence that shaped every major victory we achieved." Sarah stood at attention, saying nothing. She had trained herself never to speak unless absolutely necessary during official proceedings. Words could be remembered, recorded, analyzed. Silence was safer. The Chancellor held up a medal unlike any other in the Galactic catalog. It was simple in design, but made from a metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. This medal has been awarded only twice before in Galactic history. Both recipients were posthumous. Agent Chen, you are the first living being to receive the Medal of Ultimate Sacrifice. As the medal was placed around her neck, Sarah finally allowed herself a small nod of acknowledgement. The chamber erupted in applause that grew louder as more beings finished reading the declassified files on their datapads. They were beginning to understand that many battles they thought they had won through strength and courage had actually been won through the quiet work of one human they had never heard of. The ceremony concluded, but nobody left. Everyone wanted to know more about the silent human who had changed the course of galactic history. The reception following the ceremony was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Delegates from dozens of worlds surrounded her, each wanting to express their gratitude and learn more about her missions. She stood near a massive window overlooking the council station's docking bays, holding a glass of synthetic juice she hadn't touched. "Agent Chen," Commander Zekathera approached with obvious respect, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "I must apologize. I have read your file regarding the Kepler Nebula incident. My strike force was saved because you disabled the Devourer sensor grid 3 days before our assault. We thought we achieved surprise through superior tactics." Sarah nodded politely but said nothing. She had learned long ago that the less she spoke, the more people would fill the silence with their own assumptions and revelations. Captain Yilneth joined them, her tentacles moving in patterns that indicated deep embarrassment among her species. "At Proxima Station, my ship was part of the reserve fleet. We were supposed to arrive as reinforcements, but the battle was over before we could engage. I always wondered how the enemy made such a tactical error. Now I understand they didn't make an error at all. Your timing was perfect," Zekathera added, looking at Sarah with newfound appreciation. "Every mission seemed to align with our capabilities. The Devourers would always attack where we were strongest, retreat when we were weakest. We assumed they were simply poor strategists." Dr. Kelatun, a prominent Rigelian scientist, approached the group. Her crystalline features reflected the station's lights as she spoke. "Agent Chen, I must ask about the quantum resonance data you provided during the siege of my homeworld. Our scientists spent months analyzing Devourer shield frequencies, but we could never achieve a breakthrough. Then suddenly we received anonymous data packets containing exact harmonic frequencies that allowed our weapons to penetrate their defenses." Sarah took a small sip of her juice, using the pause to consider her words carefully. "Information has value only when it reaches the right people at the right time," she said simply. This was the longest sentence she had spoken all evening, and it caused a stir among the listeners. They leaned in closer, hoping for more details. General Tormek, a massive Ursinian warrior whose species was known for their straightforward approach to combat, pushed through the crowd. "Human, I must know about the Battle of Tau Ceti. My forces were pinned down for 2 weeks. The Devourer bioships had us completely surrounded. Then their formation suddenly collapsed. They began attacking each other instead of us. We escaped during the chaos but never understood what happened. The Devourers use a form of collective consciousness, Sarah explained. They share thoughts and coordinate actions through biochemical signals. Like any communication system, it can be disrupted if you understand the protocols. You infected their hive mind, Dr. Kelatoon breathed. You actually inserted false thoughts into their collective consciousness. The technical sophistication required for such an operation? Sarah didn't confirm or deny the statement. She had learned that allowing others to draw their own conclusions was often more effective than providing direct answers. Admiral Vix Nara of the Centauri hegemony arrived with his usual telepathic entourage. The mind warriors who accompanied him were visibly unsettled, their psychic abilities apparently unable to read Sarah's thoughts clearly. "Agent Chen," the Admiral said, his mental voice speaking directly into everyone's minds simultaneously. "My psychic commandos reported strange interference during several operations. Mental static that prevented the Devourers from detecting our approach. We assumed it was natural phenomenon caused by stellar radiation." "The mind is just another battlefield," Sarah replied. "It requires different weapons and different tactics, but the principles of warfare remain the same." The Admiral's telepathic companions exchanged worried glances. They prided themselves on being the galaxy's premier mental warriors. Yet this human had apparently operated in psychic space without any of them noticing. High Chancellor Morden approached the group, his ancient features showing curiosity that belied his centuries of experience. "Agent Chen, your file mentions that you volunteered for experimental procedures to enhance your abilities for deep infiltration. The medical reports are heavily redacted, but they suggest modifications that push the boundaries of what most species consider ethical." Sarah's expression didn't change, but those closest to her noticed a slight tension in her shoulders. "Humans have always been adaptable," she said. "When survival is at stake, adaptation becomes necessary rather than optional." "But the risks," Dr. Kelatoon pressed. "The reports mention procedures with survival rates below 30%. Genetic modifications that could have killed you or worse. Neural implants that interface directly with alien technology. Why would anyone volunteer for such things?" "Because someone had to," Sarah answered simply. The room fell quiet again. The casual way she spoke about risking her life for strangers from different worlds was something none of them fully understood. Their species were allies now, but that alliance had been born from necessity rather than genuine affection. The idea of sacrificing everything for beings you had never met was difficult for most galactic species to comprehend. Commander Zek Thara accessed another file on his datapad and his mandibles clicked in amazement. "According to this, you were declared legally dead twice during the war. Both times you were deep inside Devourer territory with no extraction plan and no communication with command. How did you survive?" "Preparation and improvisation," Sarah said. "The enemy expects certain behaviors from their opponents. When you operate outside those expectations, you create opportunities that wouldn't otherwise exist." Captain Yilnith's tentacles writhed with confusion. But the isolation, the stress, the constant danger of discovery, how does anyone maintain their sanity under such conditions? For the first time that evening, Sarah smiled slightly. It wasn't a happy expression, but rather one that suggested she had asked herself the same question many times. Sanity is a luxury that soldiers can't always afford. Focus on the mission. Complete the objective. Everything else is secondary. Ambassador Thelwyn from the Outer Rim territories joined the conversation, her 6 arms gesturing expressively as she spoke. "Agent Chen, my people have a saying. The tree that stands alone in the storm is either very strong or very foolish. Which were you?" Sarah considered the question seriously. "Both," she said finally. "Strength and foolishness often look the same from the outside. The difference is usually determined by whether you survive the consequences." The crowd around her had grown larger as more delegates learned about the human who had operated in their midst without anyone knowing. They looked at her with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and something approaching fear. This small, quiet woman had influenced the course of galactic history, while remaining completely invisible to those she had helped save. High Chancellor Morden cleared his throat, drawing attention back to himself. "Agent Chen, there is something else we must discuss. The war may be over, but the galaxy faces new challenges. Your unique skills and experience make you invaluable for future operations. The Council would like to offer you a permanent position as Special Operations Coordinator. Sarah looked out the window at the stars beyond, taking time to consider the offer. Everyone waited for her response, knowing that her answer would shape the future of galactic security operations. Sarah's quarters aboard the Council station were spartanly furnished, containing only the essentials she had requested. A simple bed, a desk with a secure terminal, and a small viewing port looking out into space. She sat at the desk, reviewing classified reports that detailed the galaxy's current security situation. 3 days had passed since the ceremony, and the media coverage showed no signs of diminishing. News networks across dozens of worlds were running features about the Ghost Agent and humanity's silent guardian. Sarah found the attention deeply uncomfortable but professionally useful. Fear was often more effective than respect when it came to deterring potential enemies. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Sarah closed the classified files and authorized access. High Chancellor Morden entered, followed by Director Valak of Galactic Intelligence and General Korthal, the Council's military advisor. Agent Chen, the Chancellor began, settling his ancient frame into the available chair. We need to discuss the new threats facing our alliance. Your skills may be needed sooner than we anticipated. Director Valak activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated areas of concern, and Sarah immediately noticed patterns that the intelligence director might have missed. 3 situations require immediate attention, Valak explained. First, the Phantom Syndicate has been raiding merchant vessels along the Outer Rim trade routes. Their technology appears to be based on Devourer bioships but modified with unknown enhancements. Sarah studied the attack patterns. They're not random raiders, she observed. These strikes target specific cargo types. Medical supplies, communication equipment, quantum processors. Someone is building something that requires these components. General Korthal nodded approvingly. That was our assessment as well. But our conventional forces have been unable to track them. Their ships appear to phase in and out of normal space using technology we don't understand. The second issue, Valak continued, involves the hegemony of Spiral. They've been conducting weapons tests near their border with the Federation. Our agents report they're developing something called Project Silence. But all intelligence-gathering attempts have failed. The hegemony of Spiral was a militaristic empire that had remained neutral during the Devourer War. They possessed advanced stealth technology and a well-deserved reputation for paranoia regarding outside interference. Your reputation preceded you there as, well, the Chancellor added. They know about your capabilities and have specifically prepared countermeasures against human infiltration techniques. Traditional espionage won't work. Sarah accessed additional files about the hegemony's recent activities. They're afraid, she concluded after reviewing the data. Nations don't develop weapons like this unless they perceive an existential threat. What are they afraid of? That brings us to the third situation, Director Valak said grimly. Intelligence indicates that remnants of the Devourer forces may have survived the war. We've detected energy signatures consistent with their technology in the Void Sector, but all scout ships sent to investigate have disappeared. The Void Sector was an area of space between galactic arms, where stars were sparse and navigation was extremely difficult. It was the perfect place for survivors to hide and rebuild their strength. How many ships have you lost? Sarah asked. 17, General Korthal replied. All different classes, from single-pilot scouts to heavy cruisers. They enter the sector and simply vanish. No distress signals, no debris, nothing. Sarah stood and walked to the viewing port, gazing out at the stars while processing the information. Each situation presented unique challenges, but there were connections between them that her briefers might not have recognized. The Phantom Syndicate is working for the Spiral hegemony, she said after several minutes of silence. The raids aren't random piracy. They're gathering specific materials for Project Silence. The hegemony is preparing for war against the Devourer survivors in the Void Sector. The 3 officials exchanged glances. This analysis went far beyond what their intelligence services had concluded. Explain your reasoning, Director Valak requested. Sarah turned back to face them. The hegemony stayed neutral during the war because they were already tracking Devourer survivors. They know something we don't about the enemy's capabilities and numbers. Project Silence isn't a weapon for attacking other galactic civilizations. It's designed specifically to fight devourers without alerting them to the attack. She activated the holographic display and began highlighting specific data points. The materials being stolen by the Phantom Syndicate are exactly what you'd need to build stealth ships capable of operating in the Void Sector. Medical supplies suggest they're planning for extended operations with significant casualties. Quantum processors are required for the kind of computing power needed to coordinate silent attacks against a hive-mind enemy. High Chancellor Morden leaned forward with interest. You believe the hegemony discovered the Devourer survivors and decided to eliminate them without informing the Council? They don't trust us, Sarah replied. From their perspective, the Council's victory was largely due to luck and the unknown assistance of one human agent. They don't believe we could handle another Devourer incursion, so they're taking matters into their own hands. But why use raiders instead of their own forces for material acquisition? General Korthal asked. Plausible deniability, Sarah explained. If their secret war goes badly, they want to be able to deny any involvement. The Phantom Syndicate gives them a buffer. If questioned, they can claim the raids were genuine piracy and that they had no knowledge of Devourer survivors. Director Valak reviewed the intelligence files with this new perspective. Your analysis fits the available data better than our original conclusions. But it raises a more serious question. If you're correct, what do we do about it? Sarah returned to her desk and accessed a different set of files. The hegemony's approach is tactically sound but strategically flawed. They're thinking about the immediate threat without considering long-term consequences. If they succeed in destroying the Devourer survivors, they'll have eliminated a threat but also gained military experience and technology that makes them more dangerous to everyone else. And if they fail, the Chancellor asked, then the Devourers will know that someone discovered their location. They'll accelerate whatever rebuilding process they've started, and likely attempt to contact other survivor groups we haven't detected yet. Either outcome destabilizes the current balance of power. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The galaxy had achieved peace after the Devourer War, but that peace was more fragile than anyone had realized. What do you recommend? Director Valak asked. Sarah closed the files and looked directly at each of her visitors. I recommend that Agent Chen officially declines the Council's offer of a permanent position and returns to Earth for debriefing and medical evaluation. The three officials looked confused by this apparent non sequitur. Unofficially, Sarah continued, I recommend that someone with extensive experience in infiltration and psychological warfare makes contact with all three situations simultaneously. The Phantom Syndicate needs to be convinced that their current employer is unreliable. The hegemony needs to understand that their secret isn't as secret as they think, and the Devourer survivors need to believe that their hiding place has been compromised by someone other than the hegemony. Director Valak began to smile as he understood the implications. You intend to play all three sides against each other. I intend to create a situation where the truth becomes more beneficial than continued deception, Sarah corrected. The hegemony will be forced to seek council assistance. The Phantom Syndicate will find more legitimate employment, and the Devourer survivors will reveal themselves attempting to eliminate what they perceive as a threat to their security. High Chancellor Morden stood slowly, his ancient eyes showing approval. This is why you were chosen for the Medal of Ultimate Sacrifice, not just for what you accomplished during the war, but for how you think about impossible problems. Sarah nodded acknowledgement but said nothing. She was already planning the details of 3 separate infiltration missions that would need to be executed simultaneously across different sectors of the galaxy. It would require resources and support that officially didn't exist, but she knew the Chancellor would provide whatever was necessary. The real work was about to begin. The modifications to Sarah's physiology were more extensive than any official record indicated. In a hidden medical facility beneath the Council Station, Dr. Kelatun worked with a team of specialists from across the galaxy to prepare her for the most complex mission of her career. The neural implants will allow you to interface directly with 3 different types of alien technology, Dr. Kelatun explained as she calibrated the quantum processors being installed in Sarah's spine. Phantom Syndicate Biotech, Hegemony Stealth Systems, and Devourer Consciousness Networks. Each one carries significant risks. Sarah lay motionless on the surgical table, fully conscious but disconnected from physical sensation below her neck. She watched the holographic displays showing her internal modifications in real time. Define significant risks. The biotech interface could trigger rejection syndrome, causing your immune system to attack your own nervous system. The stealth system connection might create permanent phase displacement, leaving you partially out of normal space-time. The Devourer network access could result in mental contamination or complete loss of individual consciousness. Survival probability? Sarah asked. Dr. Kalatun hesitated. For any single interface, approximately 60%. For all three simultaneously, less than 20%. Even if you survive the initial installations, prolonged use during your mission could cause cascading system failures. Sarah processed this information without emotion. How long before the installations are complete? 6 hours for the basic implants. Another 12 hours for full integration and testing. You'll need at least 48 hours of recovery time before attempting to use any of the new systems. I'll need to be mission ready in 36 hours, Sarah stated. Adjust the timeline accordingly. 3 levels above, Director Valak coordinated with intelligence assets across the galaxy. The mission required precise timing and completely fabricated identities that could withstand scrutiny from 3 different paranoid organizations. The Phantom Syndicate believes they're recruiting a freelance systems specialist named Elena Vasquez, he reported to High Chancellor Morden, former Earth military, discharged for ethical violations involving illegal weapons modifications. Her reputation suggests someone desperate enough to work for raiders but skilled enough to be valuable. The hegemony cover identity? The Chancellor inquired. Dr. Kira Thane, a xenobiologist studying devourer anatomy for the University of Rigel. She's requesting access to their border regions to collect specimens from recent battle sites. Her academic credentials are impeccable, and her research proposal explains why she needs to operate near sensitive military installations. And for the Devourer contact, Valak's expression grew more serious. That's the most dangerous part. She'll be infiltrating as a damaged Devourer unit that escaped the final battle. The neural modifications will allow her to mimic their consciousness patterns. But the psychological stress of joining a hive mind, even temporarily, could be devastating. The Chancellor reviewed the mission parameters one final time. Each infiltration was complex enough to require months of preparation under normal circumstances. Attempting all 3 simultaneously while maintaining separate identities was theoretically impossible. Agent Chen specifically requested these impossible conditions, he noted. She believes the overlap between missions will provide opportunities that wouldn't exist if they were conducted separately. In the medical facility, Sarah's body was responding well to the modifications. Her enhanced immune system, developed during previous missions, was accepting the alien technology with minimal rejection symptoms. The neural pathways were forming correctly, creating bridges between her human consciousness and the various alien interfaces. The biotech interface is active, Dr. Kalatun announced. You should be able to sense the Phantom Syndicate ship approaching the station. Sarah closed her eyes and extended her awareness through the new neural pathways. Immediately, she felt the presence of organic technology in nearby space. The sensation was unlike anything in human experience. A warm, living awareness that pulsed with artificial rhythms. Confirmed, she said. 1 bioship, heavily modified. I can sense its crew through the ship's nervous system. 4 beings, possibly 5. One of them is in distress. Dr. Kalatun checked her instruments. The readings show perfect interface function, but your stress indicators are elevated. Are you experiencing discomfort? The ship is in pain, Sarah explained. Phantom Syndicate modifications force bioships to operate beyond their natural parameters. The organic components are slowly dying from the strain. This was information that could prove valuable during her infiltration. Understanding the Syndicate's technological weaknesses might provide leverage during critical moments. Activating stealth interface, Dr. Kalatun announced. The second set of implants came online, and Sarah immediately felt reality shift around her. The solid surgical table became somewhat less solid. The bright medical lights dimmed as if seen through heavy fog. Sound became muffled and distant. I'm partially phased, Sarah reported. Approximately 15% displacement from normal space-time. Visual and auditory input is degraded but functional. Can you return to normal phase? Sarah concentrated on the neural controls. Reality solidified around her again as the stealth field deactivated. Yes, but the transition creates a distinctive energy signature. Anyone monitoring for phase displacement would detect it. That's expected. The hegemony uses quantum masking to hide their phase transitions. We've loaded those protocols into your implants. The final interface was the most dangerous. Devourer consciousness networks operated on principles that were barely understood even by the galaxy's leading xenopsychologists. The risk of losing her individual identity was real and potentially permanent. Devourer interface activation in 30 seconds, Dr. Kelatoon warned. If you experience any loss of self-awareness, we'll abort immediately. Sarah prepared herself mentally, reinforcing her sense of individual identity while opening her mind to alien thought patterns. The interface activated, and suddenly she was no longer alone in her own head. The sensation was overwhelming. Thousands of voices speaking in unison, sharing thoughts and emotions without barriers. She felt their hunger, their anger, their desperate need to consume and grow. For several terrifying seconds, Sarah almost lost herself in the collective consciousness. Then her training took over. She compartmentalized her thoughts, creating mental barriers that protected her core identity while allowing her to participate in the hive mind communication. It was like learning to speak a new language where every word was also an emotion, and every sentence was shared by an entire species. Status report. Dr. Kelatoon requested urgently. I'm still here, Sarah replied, though her voice carried strange harmonics that hadn't been present before. The interface is functional. I can access devourer communication protocols without losing individual consciousness. Remarkable. The neural isolation techniques we developed are actually working. You're maintaining separate thought processes while participating in collective consciousness. Sarah opened her eyes and sat up carefully. The three interfaces created a constant awareness of different technologies around her. She could sense the bioship still approaching, feel the phase fluctuations in the station's stealth generators, and detect the faint echo of devourer consciousness networks operating somewhere far beyond the galaxy's edge. How do you feel? Dr. Kelatoon asked. Different, Sarah answered honestly. I can perceive things that weren't there before. The station's quantum resonance, the emotional states of everyone in nearby rooms, the underlying structure of space-time itself. It's like gaining new senses while keeping the old ones. Director Valek's voice came through the communication system. Agent Chen, the Phantom Syndicate ship is requesting permission to dock. They're expecting to meet Elena Vasquez in 2 hours. Are you ready to begin the mission? Sarah stood and tested her balance. The multiple interfaces created a mild disorientation, but nothing she couldn't adapt to. I'm ready. Have my Elena Vasquez identity documents been distributed? All 3 cover identities are now active in their respective databases. Elena Vasquez has a meeting with the Phantom Syndicate. Dr. Kira Thane has clearance to enter hegemony space for xenobiological research, and the Devourer Survivor designation, Hunger That Seeks, has been inserted into their consciousness networks as a damaged unit seeking reconnection. Sarah nodded and headed toward the door. Monitor all 3 situations simultaneously. The timing will be critical once the operations begin interacting with each other. As she left the medical facility, Dr. Kelatoon reviewed the surgical data one final time. The modifications had been successful, but the long-term effects were completely unknown. Sarah Chen was now something new in the galaxy, a human who could interface directly with alien consciousness, while maintaining her own identity. Whether she would still be human when the mission ended was a question that no one could answer. The Phantom Syndicate bioship was even more disturbing up close than Sarah had sensed from the station. The vessel's organic hull pulsed with sickly rhythms, and bioluminescent patches flickered erratically across its surface. Through her new interface, she could feel the ship's pain as a constant background ache. Captain Vorth, the Syndicate's leader, was a Catherian whose natural blue-green skin had been modified with biomechanical implants. His forearms moved independently as he gestured, each one enhanced with different technological augmentations. Elena Vasquez, he said, using the standard Galactic trade language, your reputation precedes you. We need someone who can interface with systems that conventional technicians can't understand. Sarah had adopted Elena's personality completely, a bitter, ex-military specialist with questionable ethics and a talent for making alien technology do things it wasn't designed to do. Depends on the pay and the risk level. I've heard your ships have a tendency to eat their crews when things go wrong. Vorth's laugh was harsh and mechanical. Only the weak ones. Strong minds can dominate the biotech. That's why we need you. Our next target requires someone who can force a bioship to phase through solid matter while maintaining life support. Impossible, Sarah replied immediately. Bioships aren't designed for phase displacement. The organic components can't survive the quantum stress, which is why we're paying you to make it possible, Forth countered. Our employer has specific requirements for this job. Complete stealth, no trace signatures, and extraction through sealed bulkheads. Sarah pretended to consider the challenge while actually analyzing the ship's biotech through her neural interface. The modifications were crude but effective, forcing the organic systems to operate far beyond their natural limits. The ship was essentially being tortured into functionality. I'll need direct access to the ship's nervous system, she said finally, and triple the usual fee. What you're asking for will probably kill the ship within a few missions. Acceptable, Forth agreed quickly. We have other ships. 3 hours later, Sarah was deep in the bioship's neural core, her hands directly interfaced with the organic command systems. The ship's consciousness was alien but simple. It wanted to hunt, to feed, to reproduce. The Syndicate's modifications had corrupted these basic drives, turning them into weapons of piracy and murder. Through her connection, she could feel the ship's memories. Images of merchant vessels being consumed, their crews devoured to fuel the ship's growth. Raids on civilian colonies where bioships had landed like infections, spreading through populated areas and converting everything they touched. Sarah pushed deeper into the ship's consciousness, searching for information about their mysterious employer. The bioship's memory was fragmented, but she found traces of encrypted communications and meeting coordinates. The employer was definitely the hegemony of Spiral. The communication protocols matched their standard diplomatic channels, and the payment transfers originated from banks in hegemony space. More importantly, she found references to something called the Void Protocol, a plan that involved using modified bioships to attack targets in the empty space between galaxies. While maintaining her Elena Vasquez persona, Sarah began implementing the modifications Vorth had requested. She couldn't actually make bioships phase through solid matter safely, but she could create the appearance of such capability. More importantly, she could install backdoors in the ship's systems that would allow her to track and control the vessel remotely. The modifications are complete, she announced after 6 hours of work. Your ship can now achieve limited phase displacement for approximately 10 minutes. Any longer, and the organic components will begin to break down at the cellular level. Vorth tested the new systems and seemed satisfied with the results. Excellent. You'll be accompanying us on the next mission to ensure the modifications work properly under combat conditions. This was exactly what Sarah had hoped for. Staying with the Syndicate would allow her to gather more intelligence about their operations, while positioning her closer to their ultimate target. Meanwhile, her second identity was already active in hegemony space. Dr. Kira Thane had been granted research access to the border regions where Devourer battlefields still contained valuable specimens. The hegemony authorities were suspicious but cooperative, providing her with a small research vessel and limited military escort. The research ship was equipped with stealth technology that Sarah could interface with through her neural implants. When the military escorts weren't watching, she began extending her sensor range far beyond what was officially possible. The enhanced sensors revealed something disturbing in the empty space beyond the galaxy's edge. Devourer biosignatures were definitely present in the void sector, but in much greater numbers than anyone had suspected. Entire fleets of bioships were hiding in the darkness between stars, slowly rebuilding their strength. More concerning was evidence of new construction, structures that didn't match any known Devourer technology. The survivors weren't just hiding, they were adapting, incorporating new technologies and possibly new allies into their forces. The threat they represented was far greater than the hegemony realized. Sarah's third identity required the most dangerous preparation. To infiltrate the Devourer survivors as one of their own, she needed to project the consciousness pattern of a damaged unit, seeking reconnection with the collective. This meant opening her mind to the alien thought patterns, while maintaining enough individual identity to function independently. The process was agonizing. Devourer consciousness operated on principles of consumption and domination that were fundamentally opposed to human psychology. She had to suppress her natural empathy and replace it with alien hunger, while keeping her core personality intact. Through the Devourer interface, she began broadcasting distress signals into the Void sector. The survivors would interpret these as calls for help from a damaged unit that had escaped the final battle and was now seeking to rejoin the collective. The response came faster than expected. Devourer consciousness touched her mind across the vast distances, probing her thoughts for signs of deception. Sarah allowed them to see carefully constructed memories of escape and survival, while hiding her true identity beneath layers of simulated trauma. Unit designation? The collective demanded. Hunger that seeks, Sarah responded using the identity that Director Valak had created. Damage during final battle. Consciousness fragmented. Seeking reconnection and repair. Location. Sarah transmitted coordinates that would lead them toward the border between hegemony space and the Void sector, hiding among lesser species. Avoiding detection while awaiting orders. Orders acknowledged. Maintain position. Collection units dispatched. The connection ended, leaving Sarah mentally exhausted but successful. The Devourer survivors believed her deception and were sending ships to collect her. This would draw them out of their hiding places and into a region where both the hegemony and the Council could monitor their movements. Now came the most dangerous part of the mission. Sarah had to coordinate all three identities while ensuring that the various factions encountered each other in exactly the right sequence. The Phantom Syndicate needed to attack the Hegemony Research Facility just as Devourer collection units arrived in the area. The resulting chaos would force all three groups to reveal their true capabilities and intentions. As Elena Vasquez, she would sabotage the Syndicate's attack to prevent unnecessary casualties. As Dr. Kira Thane, she would gather intelligence on hegemony military capabilities. As Hunger that seeks, she would mislead the Devourer forces about the true nature of the threats they faced. Each identity required different knowledge, different personality traits, and different loyalty systems. Sarah began compartmentalizing her consciousness more carefully, creating mental barriers that would prevent one identity from contaminating another. The neural strain was enormous, but manageable. She had prepared for this moment throughout her entire career, pushing the boundaries of human psychological adaptability until she could literally become different people as needed. In 12 hours, all three groups would converge in the same region of space. What happened next would determine whether the galaxy faced another devastating war or achieved a more stable peace through controlled revelation of hidden threats. Sarah checked her equipment one final time and began the final preparations for what might be the most complex military operation ever attempted. The convergence began exactly as Sarah had planned. The Phantom Syndicate bioship emerged from hyperspace near the Hegemony Research Station, its stolen stealth technology masking their approach. Through Elena's interface with the ship's nervous system, Sarah guided the vessel toward the target while simultaneously sabotaging its weapon systems. Biocannon. Charging cycles are unstable, she reported to Captain Vorth. The phase modifications are interfering with the organic targeting systems. We can breach their hull, but precision targeting is impossible. This was a carefully crafted lie. The bioship was functioning perfectly, but Sarah needed to ensure that the Syndicate's attack would disable the station's defenses without killing the research staff. Dr. Kira Thane needed to survive to complete her part of the mission. 20,000 kilometers away, Sarah's second identity was detecting the approaching bioship through enhanced sensors. Dr. Kira Thane immediately transmitted a priority alert to Hegemony Military Command, reporting unknown biosignatures approaching the research facility. This is Research Station Kalik 7, she broadcast on emergency frequencies. We have multiple bogies approaching at high speed. Biotech signatures consistent with Devourer technology, but modified. Requesting immediate military assistance. The response was swift but not what she had expected. Instead of sending conventional warships, the Hegemony dispatched a single vessel that didn't appear on any standard classification charts. The ship was completely black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and its energy signature was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Through Dr. Thane's sensors, Sarah realized that Project Silence was far more advanced than anyone had suspected. The Hegemony had developed stealth technology that operated on principles beyond simple phase displacement. Their ship existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, making it effectively invisible to most detection methods. but Sarah's enhanced neural interfaces could perceive it clearly. The ship was there and not there simultaneously, occupying multiple probability states until the moment it chose to act. The technological implications were staggering. At the same time, her third identity was receiving urgent communications from the Devourer Collective. Hunger That Seeks was being contacted by the collection units approaching from the Void sector. Unit status report, the collective demanded. Detecting combat activity in local space. Sarah responded through the Devourer interface. Unknown bioships engaging hegemony forces. Technology signatures suggest corrupted Devourer units. This information sent ripples of alarm through the collective consciousness. The Devourers were extremely protective of their biological technology and considered unauthorized modifications to be a form of blasphemy. The fact that someone was using corrupted bioships for piracy would demand immediate investigation. Terminate corrupted units, came the order. Investigate modification source. Destroy those responsible. Sarah felt the collective's anger like a physical force pressing against her mind. She had to maintain her artificial identity while channeling genuine alien emotions that were fundamentally opposed to human psychology. The mental strain was beginning to approach dangerous levels. The Phantom Syndicate attack commenced with biocannons firing at the research station. Sarah's sabotage ensured that the shots were precisely placed to disable shield generators and communication arrays without breaching life support sections. The station's defenses collapsed quickly, but the crew remained alive. Captain Vorth was pleased with the results. Excellent work, Vasquez. The bioship is performing exactly as required. Now we board the station and acquire the research data. The bioship is dying, Sarah warned him, which was actually true. The modifications required for this mission were pushing the organic systems beyond their survival limits. We have maybe 2 hours before complete system failure. This timeline was crucial. The Devourer collection units would arrive in 90 minutes, followed shortly by additional hegemony forces. Sarah needed all 3 groups to encounter each other in a specific sequence to achieve the desired outcome. As Elena Vasquez, she accompanied the boarding party to the research station. As Dr. Kira Thane, she prepared to meet them while transmitting critical data to Hidden Council monitoring stations. As Hunger That Seeks, she guided the approaching Devourer forces toward the convergence point. The boarding of Research Station Kalik 7 proceeded smoothly until the raiders encountered Dr. Thane in her laboratory. Sarah found herself in the surreal position of negotiating with herself while maintaining 2 completely different identities. Dr. Thane, Elena said with appropriate menace, we need your research data on Devourer biology, specifically anything related to consciousness networks and collective intelligence systems. I don't understand, Dr. Thane replied, projecting appropriate fear and confusion. My research is purely academic. Why would pirates want biological studies? Because someone is paying us very well for this specific information, Elena answered. The easier you make this, the better chance you have of surviving. During this carefully choreographed exchange, both identities were secretly downloading the actual research data to secure council databases. The information Dr. Thane had collected revealed disturbing facts about Devourer adaptive capabilities that would be crucial for future defense planning. The hegemony stealth ship chose that moment to reveal itself, materializing directly alongside the bioship in a display of technological superiority that sent shockwaves through both vessels. Its quantum uncertainty field collapsed into solid reality, and weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously opened fire. The bioship's organic hull began dissolving under the assault from weapons that attacked on molecular, quantum and temporal levels simultaneously. Captain Vorth's crew panicked as their ship died around them, its nervous system screaming in agony that Sarah felt through her neural interface. All units, evacuate immediately, she ordered as Elena Vasquez while simultaneously coordinating the research station's emergency protocols as Dr. Thane. The bioship is entering cascade failure. Biotech explosion in approximately 15 minutes. The hegemony ship opened communication channels. Unknown raiders, you are in violation of hegemony territorial sovereignty. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. But before anyone could respond, space around the research station erupted with new arrivals. 3 massive Devourer bioships emerged from hyperspace. Their collective consciousness focused on the corrupted technology they had detected. Sarah felt their presence like a thunderclap in her mind. The collection units were far larger and more advanced than the bioships used during the war. These were specialized vessels designed for investigation and purification, equipped with weapons that could sterilize entire star systems if necessary. Through the Hunger That Seeks interface, she immediately contacted the collective. Corrupted bioship confirmed. Hegemony forces using unknown weapons technology. Multiple hostile contacts. The lead Devourer ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. Lesser species, you have violated sacred biological protocols. Corrupted biotechnology must be purified. Withdraw immediately or face consumption. The Hegemony stealth ship responded by opening fire on all targets simultaneously. Its multi-dimensional weapons struck the dying bioship, the research station, and one of the Devourer vessels. The attack revealed capabilities that shocked even Sarah's enhanced perceptions. The Hegemony had developed weapons that could damage Devourer bioships. This was something that conventional galactic forces had struggled to achieve during the war. Yet these new weapons were cutting through organic armor like it didn't exist. All units, Sarah broadcast through her Devourer interface, recommend immediate tactical withdrawal. Hegemony weapons effectiveness exceeds acceptable parameters. Alert main fleet. But the collective was beyond rational communication. The sight of corrupted biotechnology combined with effective weapons being used against them triggered a rage response that overrode strategic thinking. All three Devourer ships began advancing toward the Hegemony vessel, their biocannons charging for maximum output. Sarah realized that her carefully planned operation was about to spiral into exactly the kind of devastating battle she had hoped to prevent. The Hegemony's secret weapons were too effective, the Devourer's emotional response too intense, and the Phantom Syndicate's corrupted biotechnology too provocative. She had approximately 4 minutes to prevent a conflict that could reignite galactic war, and she was simultaneously maintaining 3 different identities while coordinating the evacuation of a damaged research station. The neural strain of managing multiple consciousness interfaces under extreme stress was approaching critical levels. Sarah could feel her mental barriers beginning to weaken as alien thought patterns pressed against her human identity. But she had one final card to play, one that would require her to abandon all 3 cover identities and reveal herself to everyone present. It was the only way to prevent the catastrophe that was about to unfold. Sarah made the decision in a split second that felt like an eternity. She simultaneously dropped all 3 cover identities and activated emergency protocols that had been embedded in her neural implants for exactly this scenario. Through the bioship's communication system, she broadcast on all frequencies using her real voice and identity. This is Agent Sarah Chen of the Terran Intelligence Division, operating under Council Authorization Omega-7. All units cease fire immediately. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Every ship in the area had access to galactic military databases, and Sarah's name was now permanently associated with the Medal of Ultimate Sacrifice. Her reputation preceded her across all species and factions. Captain Vorth stared at Elena Vasquez in shock as her appearance and voice changed before his eyes. "You're the ghost agent, the human who influenced the entire war." Dr. Kira Thane was simultaneously revealing herself to the evacuating research staff. "My real research was never about biology. I've been monitoring Hegemony weapons development and Devourer survivor activities. Both of you represent threats to galactic stability. But the most dangerous revelation was happening through the Devourer consciousness network." The collective suddenly realized that Hunger That Seeks was not a damaged unit seeking reconnection, but the same human who had infiltrated their forces during the war. The rage that erupted through the collective consciousness nearly shattered Sarah's sanity. Thousands of alien minds screamed their fury directly into her thoughts, demanding her immediate destruction for the deception. She held on to her identity through sheer willpower, while the Devourer ships redirected their weapons toward the research station. "Wait," Sarah broadcast through all channels simultaneously. "Before you destroy each other, you need to understand what's really happening here." The Hegemony stealth ship held its fire, though its weapons remained charged. The Devourer vessels continued their approach but delayed their attack. Captain Vorth and his surviving crew could only listen in amazement as the most feared intelligence agent in the galaxy began to explain the larger situation. The Phantom Syndicate has been unknowingly working for the hegemony, Sarah announced. Their raids provided materials for Project Silence, which was designed to eliminate Devourer survivors without council oversight. The hegemony discovered your hidden fleets months ago and decided to handle the threat unilaterally. Through her connection to the collective consciousness, Sarah felt their confusion and growing understanding. The Devourers were excellent at reading emotional truth, and they could sense that she was not deceiving them about this fundamental fact. The hegemony's weapons are specifically designed to penetrate bioship defenses, she continued. They've analyzed wreckage from the war and developed countermeasures for every known Devourer technology. Their stealth ships can strike without warning and destroy entire fleets. The lead Devourer vessel responded through bioacoustic communication that translated across all systems. Human Agent Chen, your words carry truth vibrations. But deception patterns also present. Explain purpose of this convergence. Sarah took a deep breath and prepared to reveal the full scope of her operation. I orchestrated this encounter to force all three factions to reveal their capabilities to each other. The hegemony needed to understand that Devourer survivors have grown stronger, not weaker. The Devourers needed to see that conventional warfare would fail against new weapons technology. The Phantom Syndicate needed to understand that their employer was using them as expendable tools. The hegemony stealth ship opened a direct communication channel. Agent Chen, you have interfered with classified military operations. The Devourer threat requires elimination, not negotiation. Commander, Sarah replied. Your stealth technology is impressive, but it won't be effective against the full Devourer fleet. The survivors have developed adaptive capabilities that weren't present during the war. They can now analyze and counter new weapon systems in real time. Your surprise attack would succeed initially, but the retaliation would devastate hegemony space. Through her Devourer interface, she could feel the collective confirming this assessment. The survivors had indeed developed new capabilities, including rapid technological adaptation and enhanced collective intelligence. They were no longer the same enemy that had been defeated in the war. Furthermore, Sarah continued, the Devourer survivors aren't planning another invasion. Their hidden fleets are defensive, not offensive. They're afraid of exactly the kind of preemptive attack you're planning. This revelation sent shockwaves through all three groups. The assumption that Devourer survivors were preparing for renewed conquest had driven much of the galaxy's recent military planning. Captain Vorth found his voice first. If they're not planning to attack, why maintain such massive fleets? Sarah answered through both her human voice and the Devourer collective interface simultaneously. Because they're afraid of extinction. The war taught them that galactic civilization will unite against existential threats. They believe that any contact with other species will trigger another genocidal campaign. The collective consciousness rippled with confirmation of this fear. Through her neural link, Sarah could feel their desperate desire for survival and their absolute terror of being discovered and hunted again. Agent Chen, the hegemony commander, interjected. Even if their intentions are currently defensive, they remain a potential threat. Their technology could be turned to offensive purposes at any time, and your stealth technology could be used to eliminate any species you consider threatening, Sarah countered. The same logic that justifies attacking them could justify attacking anyone. Mutual fear is not a basis for lasting security. She activated her emergency authorization codes and transmitted data that she had been gathering throughout the mission. I'm sharing intelligence with all parties that demonstrates a better approach. The Devourer survivors have capabilities we need. The hegemony has technology they need. The galaxy faces threats beyond what any single faction can handle alone. The data she transmitted contained evidence of other dangers lurking beyond the galactic rim. Ancient automated weapon systems, parasitic energy beings, and signs of civilizations that made even the Devourers seem primitive. The galaxy needed unity, not internal conflict. Through the collective consciousness, Sarah felt the Devourers processing this information with their enhanced pattern recognition abilities. They could see connections and implications that escaped other species, and they were beginning to understand the logic of cooperation over conflict. Proposal, the lead Devourer ship announced. Controlled contact protocols. Limited technology exchange. Mutual defense agreement against external threats. The hegemony commander was silent for several minutes before responding. The council would need to guarantee Devourer compliance with non-aggression treaties. Our stealth technology could provide verification and enforcement mechanisms. Captain Vorth looked around at his dying bioship and his decimated crew. What about the Phantom Syndicate? We're criminals now, pirates with corrupted biotechnology. Sarah smiled for the first time since the operation began. Actually, you're unemployed mercenaries with valuable experience in biotech integration. The Council needs specialists who can work with hybrid technologies. For the mutual defense programs we're about to establish, the convergence that had begun as a potential catastrophe was transforming into the foundation for a new type of galactic cooperation. The Devourer survivors would gain legitimacy and protection. The hegemony would get verification of non-aggression and access to biotechnology that could enhance their defensive capabilities. The former pirates would find legitimate employment in the most challenging technical project in galactic history. Sarah began coordinating the complex negotiations that would be required to formalize these arrangements. Her neural implants allowed her to facilitate communication between species that had never successfully cooperated before, translating not just languages but fundamental concepts and emotional frameworks. 6 months later, she stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. But this time she was not alone in the corner. Representatives from the Devourer Collective sat alongside traditional council members, their bioships docked peacefully at the station. Hegemony stealth vessels provided security that was both visible and invisible, demonstrating their commitment to the new alliance. The Phantom Syndicate had become the Technical Integration Division, developing hybrid technologies that combined the best aspects of biological, quantum, and conventional systems. Captain Vorth now held the title of Chief Biotech Specialist and had discovered that legitimate work was far more satisfying than piracy. High Chancellor Morden approached Sarah as the session concluded. Agent Chen, the Council has voted to establish a new position, Director of Threat Assessment and Interspecies Cooperation. The job requires someone who can operate across multiple cultures and consciousness types while maintaining perspective on larger strategic challenges. Sarah considered the offer seriously. It would mean abandoning the shadows and operating in full public view. No more secret missions or hidden identities. Just the complex, visible work of building trust between species that had every reason to fear each other. I accept, she said simply, but I want it clearly understood that cooperation is not the same as control. The moment anyone tries to use this position to dominate others, I'll disappear again. The Chancellor nodded with deep respect. We would expect nothing less from the woman who saved the galaxy by refusing to let anyone stay hidden. As Sarah looked out at the assembled representatives of dozens of worlds and species, she realized that her most important mission was just beginning. Preventing wars was easier than building lasting peace. But for the first time since the Devourer War ended, she felt optimistic about the galaxy's future. The silent, invisible, forgotten agent had finally found a way to work in the light.